Hey, look which one I got. Look what I got.
Here, Elizabeth, go choose a pretty color that you like.
Welcome to Watch Like a Kid.
A podcast where we watch your kid shows so you don't have to.
We are your hosts, Diane and Gabrielle.
So come, be a kid with us. Hi, Gabby.
Hi, Diane.
Welcome to Watch Like a Teen.
Oh,
That's right. We're doing things a little different today. We're back into the teen world, and I feel like it's been so long.
it has.
What was the last one we did?
Was it Heartbreak High?
Heartbreak High? Guys, that was a really great episode.
It was really fun.
Some of our best work, honestly.
Yes.
Well, Gabby's best work, because she covered it, and she told me all about Heartbreak High. Everything you need to know about the saucy, spicy, scandalous show.
So good. Some of our best fits, too.
An amazing theme.
Amazing.
Unlike this week, I'm not going to lie, I was not as excited for today's theme.
Although you do have the exact sweater vest that she wears in the show we're covering.
Yes. And not only that, we are also covering a book.
Welcome to Read Like a Teen.
It's a work in progress.
We thought, because this is our first newish book to TV/movie adaptation that we're covering outside of Turtles All the Way Down, but we'd both read that book. We decided it would be interesting for one of us to watch the show and one of us to read the book, and then we can compare notes.
And since my degree is in film, it made sense for me to watch the TV show, and since Gabby is our resident NYU graduate and has literally written a YA novel herself, people get on board with Gabby.
Please.
Then she was the only person that could read this book and cover it.
I'm the only person.
I am so excited to see what is the same, what is different.
I know.
Because we promise you guys, I have not read it. She has not seen it.
Nope.
We are sticking true to it. And
So
we
true.
have not discussed it ahead of time. Anytime we started to, we were like, shh.
Right. We would be like, never mind.
Never
The only
mind, never
reason
mind.
I know that Homegirl has a sweater vest in the show is because I looked up images to try and find my fit. But again, I don't know anything.
They're in a very small town, which Gabby did not realize was in the UK.
I did not realize we were in the UK, guys. Well, again, remember, I don't have accents. I'm reading.
You're reading.
And I must have missed something because Diane's like, they're in the UK. I'm like, what?
You didn't see that favorite had an extra vowel in there?
No, I don't know if they changed it for the US version.
Oh,
There was
maybe.
one word toward the end that I was like, I don't know what that means. Maybe that's a UK word.
Oh.
But the rest of the time, I mean, in my book, she wants to go to Columbia. Not that you can't go to an American school if
Wait,
you're...
she wants to go to Columbia?
Yeah. Where does she not want to go to Columbia in the show?
No.
Does she want to go anywhere?
She's looking at Cambridge, I want to say, and different colleges there, because I think it's where her dad went.
What? She definitely... I just finished this 2 hours ago. She definitely wants to go to Columbia in this book.
There was never a single mention of the U.S.
No, there was not a single
this-
mention of the US except for Columbia. But
And
that's
we're
wild.
already off to
Already
a rocky
off.
start
Right.
of this adaptation. Let's rewind and get to what it's even about. What's going on? Do you want to open us up?
Yes, let's do a quick summary. Kind of, we have our girl Pip. She's our main character.
She's about 17, 18. I think she's 18 because she can drive in the UK. And in the
She's
UK,
17 in the book.
Okay. And she has two really great friends that she hangs out with all the time. She has two loving parents.
Mm-hmm. She has 3 boys that she doesn't really care about, but they follow her and
Yeah.
her friends around.
Outskirt friend group.
I think
but
it was
still,
just to put some boys in it.
yeah, they're like, let's find the boys. We're all tight-knit group. And I was like, do they even have lines? I don't...
No, all the interactions in the book, at least, they're kind of fighting, and I'm like, does she even like these boys? I don't think she
what
likes
are they
them.
here for? Not to further the plot.
No. I'm going to go ahead and pause real quick so we can tell our listeners and viewers, this is not going to be a spoiler-free shindig.
We are going to tell you every part of the
Everything.
plot.
So we watch your kids shows, so you don't have to, meaning we're assuming you don't want to watch or
Yes.
read this, and so we are going to say everything. If you do want to watch or read this, maybe.
Our lovely child-free millennial viewers that we love so much and who have stuck with us all this time. I mean, keep us on mute so we get those views. That'd be great. But come back once you've read and or watched it yourself, because we do not want to ruin your day by spoiling it.
Right.
Because I don't know about if it was a good read for you, but the show, it wasn't my favorite, but it was still pretty decent to watch. I, enjoyed the overall plot and reason for it, but we want you to have that experience
and
yourself.
it is a mystery, like you're trying to figure out the whodunit of it all. So
what was it, 5 years ago?
Yes,
There
it was
was
5 years ago.
Yes, a local girl, Andy Bell, went missing. Supposedly she was murdered.
Yes, because they still haven't found the body after 5 years, and the evidence all points to her boyfriend killing her.
Yes, Sal.
Yes.
Who, in the show, I don't know how they write it in the book, but in the show he supposedly committed suicide the day after Andy Bell went missing, because the police thought it was him.
Yes.
And so everyone wrapped everything up nicely, although they never found the body, and Sal's family was just kind of made into outcasts, and everyone's living their life.
Yes.
In comes Pip.
Right.
I don't know why. But there's a thing called the EPQ in the UK. I guess it's like a final assessment or like a final project you need to write something about.
I think in the book they called it a capstone.
Capstone. Okay, that's a good word. That makes sense.
So definitely like a final project to graduate.
She's super great at literature and English, supposedly in reading.
In my book, she's really into journalism.
That makes more sense because in the show, she's going to write her capstone initially on like romance and gothic literature or something like that, and then for some reason she decides to do this murder case and she wants to solve it.
No, see, why fix what's not broken? The book, it starts out like the first thing is the project, and we get this project. And it's basically like, I am going into, now she does say English, but she also says journalism, investigative journalism, and criminal, cannot say that word, criminal law. And there's more of those than there is English. So my viewpoint was, she's like a Rory Gilmore, she's trying to get her Christiane on a
Words are hard for you today, aren't they, Gabby? Aren't you supposed to be the word expert today? Isn't today your day? Isn't...
She's trying to get her journalist on, she's trying to, she wants to go to an Ivy and, not Yale, but Columbia. By the way, even Cambridge, why is it in these YA books and TV shows that everyone's trying to go to an Ivy League? That is so unrealistic.
Yeah, because she doesn't lead on to having, good grades or being the perfect student.
Oh, in this book she is. They
say she is, but at the same
student.
time... It's kind of like they thought of that trope and then they didn't really try very hard.
The only other time I remembered that is when she was playing hooky one day and he's like, "You never played hooky before?" And she goes, "No, I've only missed 4 days of school and that was because of chickenpox."
They did mention something in the show where they're like, "Wow, you skipped school," and everyone was super shocked. But in my mind, I'm like, your average teen isn't really going to be playing hooky a ton. Your average teen, I'm sorry, they go to school.
Yeah.
They might not pay attention, but they go.
Sometimes I think adult writers think, or maybe they did, maybe these writers were having baller teen lives and we were boring.
Heartbreak High.
High.
They're all skipping school there.
They're all skipping
they don't go to class.
They go to their STD class and that's it. But I was actually a little confused that it was called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder because it didn't really seem like she was having this good girl trope about her while I was reading. It's other than, again, not missing school because of except for chickenpox. She seemed like she was very actually I don't know how to describe it, but she was very not afraid to speak her mind. She was outspoken. She wasn't afraid to stand up to people. She was messy.
She seemed kind of edgy.
Yeah, she seemed like she was kind of an edgy girl. So I was a little confused about the title of this. I'm not gonna lie.
And actually, in the show, her teacher, who was one of her best friend's dad, she actually talks to him about her capstone, and he wants her to change it at one point, and she's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, in the beginning of the book, the teacher says, this is very sensitive, and the only way you can do it is if you promise not to talk to any of the families, either Sal's family or Andy's family. If you do, you will be disqualified.
Oh, see, in the show, it was her mom saying, like, hey, honey, or because her parents are, like, super supportive, and she's got this whole chalkboard wall in her room, and so she's, like, making circles and putting pictures up and writing notes, and her mom's like, you know what, I'm going to support you if this is what you want to do, but do not talk to those families. Do not interview these people. It's still touchy after 5 years.
In the book, it's the teacher, and the teacher flat out says, if you do it, you will be disqualified. So it was much to my surprise when the very next page comes and she's like on her way to interview one of the family members, and I was like, girl, you about to not graduate. Good girl who? Like, what? And she's like writing this all down. She has throughout the book, she keeps her logs, and she's writing down everything that happens, and she doesn't shy away from saying, I went to Sal's house today, and I interviewed his brother, and I did that. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna do it, at least do it quietly, maybe.
In the show, she uses voice memos.
Oh, very 13 Reasons.
Yes, much more visual. Yes, and she's not the best interviewer to begin in the beginning.
Okay.
She just goes right in, asks, did you murder her? Did you know where she went?
No, she always has a really awkward intro in the book.
She does. Yeah. Okay, that's consistent.
Okay.
That's consistent.
And she stopped, like, writing them after a while because she was like, I'm always awkward, we're just going to skip to it. But she always had one.
I still don't understand why a teenager is doing the police's work.
I mean, the police didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. They were like, it was Sal. What is that? Okay, I'm sorry. Have you seen Larry Boy?
No.
Larry Boy is like a spinoff of VeggieTales for all the, like, Christian millennials. And there's this song that she's lying about breaking the plate, and she's like blaming on this girl Laura. She's like, it's Laura's fault she broke the plate, it's true, and that's the tale I have to tell to you. And that's definitely what the police were doing with Sal. It's Sal's fault he killed the girl, it's true. And that's the tale I have to tell to you. Boop. But Pip is like, no, I don't buy it, because Pip had some experiences with Sal, and they were always positive. Now, me personally, that would not be enough for me to not believe that you were a murderer, because people be lying to your faces, honey. People be lying.
To me, the whole reason why she got so invested in the beginning is strange. I'll agree, because in the show that they keep having a flashback of when she was younger on the day that Andy Bell went missing, and Andy comes by her. She looks like she's been crying. She's distraught, and she just looks at Pip and just like tells her shh and keeps walking into like a classroom. And then Sal comes by a minute later and is like, hey, have you seen Andy? And you could see Pip is like, should I tell him? Andy told me not to. And then he's like, I just need to talk to her for a minute. And so she feels guilty because she ends up telling him, oh, Andy went that way. And apparently that was like on the day she went missing, supposedly killed. So for the past 5 years, she's felt guilty in a way. Even though she technically went missing later that night. In the show, they show that this is like really weighing heavily on her. Like as in, she doesn't know if Sal is innocent or guilty, but she feels a sense of guilt by telling him where Andy went, or wondering, oh, was he a bad guy? I remember him being nice. But she kept going, oh, I knew Sal, he was so nice, he talked to me a lot, but that was the only flashback they ever showed of her interacting with him.
Okay, I definitely don't think that happened in the book.
No.
I wonder if they added that in the TV show because maybe the motivation was a little flimsy of just like, but he was so nice to me, you know? So maybe they thought they needed to add another layer, because she is like, throughout the whole book, really, really like in it. Like she's like almost to the point where it's obsessive, and I just kind of assumed that was her personality type. I didn't really think that much into it, but some people could probably be like, okay, why does she care so much, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So she starts the investigation and automatically starts just interviewing anybody who was involved. Not, at least in the show, she did not exactly care about their feelings. No. Or if it was a sore subject.
No, she starts off in the book with Sal's brother. Ravi. And
who's... What, 19, 20?
He's
19?
20 in the book. He's 20 and she's 17 in the book. And I'm not going to lie, that messed me up a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going over to this girl man's place. And, I mean, he still lived with his parents, I think, but they were out or something. She starts being like, can I talk to you about this? He's like, okay, come back another day or whatever. And she does come back the other day. And he's like, I didn't think you were actually going to come back. And she's like, no, I'm really serious about this. I don't think your brother did it. And to my surprise, Robbie goes along with it because he also doesn't think that Sal did it. And he feels like because of her capstone, she has an actual excuse to dig into it, whereas he doesn't really have an excuse other than to like clear his brother's name or to like help his family not be so ostracized. But because the whole town hates them, he can't really get very far.
In the show, it's very similar. They just more so touch on like almost as a way for him to overcome his grief and to like kind of get through it. Like he fully believes his brother's innocent too, and he doesn't want everyone to think that they're all bad people or anything. I found that it showed that he mostly just felt so outcasted and he needed some sort of purpose as well as a way to heal.
Yes. So then she does interview the journalist who wrote about the case a lot in the town.
We didn't have that.
Oh, there's a journalist and she thought he was such a bad journalist. She was like, on the phone interview, she was like, actually, I'm surprised you still have a job. And he's like, I don't need some kid telling me how to do my job. Which comes around a lot because at one point Robbie also calls her some kid. So there's a lot of like infantilizing going on, which I'm sure kind of makes her want to prove things even more. Like, no, I'm not just some kid.
But at the same time, she's a kid.
She's totally a kid.
There should have been a detective. Like, well, who cares?
I'm surprised. My surprise came when there was so many adults just like entertaining her and answering tea-filled questions about these families.
And full on not being, they weren't even like, hey, this is off the record.
Yeah.
They all knew she was hitting record on her phone or writing in her journal. And they all just went for it. At one point, there's these, the young police officer who's like skeevy, and at some point you're like, did he do it kind of thing. And he straight up is like, picks her up from her house, and it's like, let's go for a ride. And
that did not happen in the book.
Oh, no. He's like, he like takes her back to Andy Bell's house, and is like, hey, like, they were nice to me. They gave me a job. Like, you're looking at it wrong. You need to stop looking into things.
Oh, my goodness.
And to me, I'm like, how does nobody care?
Yeah,
how does no
boundary
care?
Crossing a lot. Now, when it comes to her, because she interviews a lot of Sal's friends and Andy's friends, when it comes to them, I kind of get it because they're like 21, 22. They're not like super adulty yet. They're still kind of college kids.
Well, it does get a bit touchy because, at least in the show, one of her best friends, whose dad is an English teacher at the school, their sister was friends with Andy Bell, so she's a bit older than them. And she's been going through, like, a really tough time. She's, like, that whole ordeal messed her up. And so, at first, her friend says, like, please don't interview my sister. And she does anyway. She does, because she is not a good girl, like the title suggests. No. It's giving a bit of Harriet the Spy.
Interesting.
It's a kid trying to solve something, but, like, higher stakes in this book.
Yes. And it is to the point, because she's also trying to, at least in the book, go to Columbia, but she's trying to go to college. And she has to write, she wants early decisions, so she has to write this essay by a certain time, and she keeps putting it off, and she's becoming so obsessive about this that her parents are starting to be like, babe, like, can we cool it? Like, you need to focus on your application, you need to focus on our stuff, like, this is taking over your life, she's not getting any sleep, and even her friends are, like, kind of making snide comments about, like, oh, nice to see you around. Like, haven't seen you around lately. Like, oh, you're gracing us with your presence, are we?
I found it strange because her friends did that, and then they would also, in some scenes in the show, be like, oh, what have you found so far? Or, like, let us help you. Like, they wanted the gossip and the tea, it felt like, but they were also at the same time like, hey, let it go. So
we have a few suspects on the board by now. We have the police officer. She thinks he's kind of skeevy, and also so this is an important part. So she finds out by interviewing one of Andy's friends that there was this like older guy that she might have been seeing behind Sal's back. Yeah, secret older guy. And because they were saying Sal and Andy were having a fight the day that Andy went missing, she's wondering if it's about this secret older guy. So she thinks if she can figure out who this secret older guy is, maybe that guy has motive, because Andy says something like to the secret older guy, like, it could ruin him if people found out. So.
And Andy isn't exactly a good girl either. that's what everyone thought, and
because she's pretty.
And even after she died, everyone thought that. And so the big thing that's happening is Pip is finding out that these people that she really liked and knew, because it's a small town, were living completely different lives. So
Yes.
Andy has a very controlling father who's like the police chief of sorts, and she has a younger sister, and that's kind of it. And so the dad is super controlling, doesn't let her do anything, and so she
makes comments about her appearance a lot.
Yeah, she wants to get away essentially.
Yeah.
So she starts selling drugs. She has like a drug dealer that Pip has to try to find and track down, wondering, did the drug dealer do it?
The secret older guy, you know? So she's finding all these like secret older guys. There's a teacher that she had said, I guess the week before she disappeared, that he's like an asshole and she hates him. And you know, Pip thought that was weird because their first interview with that teacher, he said that he didn't really have much interaction with Andy. So now she's like, is he the older guy? And he's kind of keeping it a secret because, you know, of course it could ruin him because he's her teacher.
There was also one of her friends that was like super partier guy that she thought was kind of a suspect because all of her friends lied about Sal. They were all together. She was not. She was with them, and then she left. And then Sal and her other friends, which was one of Pip's friend's sister, they were all together. Like the older kids were hanging out. And Sal supposedly left after midnight, but for some reason they told police he left at 10:30. So they said he didn't have an alibi for when.
Well, at first they said that Sal told him to lie.
Yes.
Is that true? So Sal came to them and was like, hey, I know I left at 10:30, but can you just lie to the police and say I left at midnight? Because if you don't, I'm afraid they're going to think that it was me, and we're not actually going to find Andy because obviously I didn't kill Andy. And I want them to put all the focus on finding her. And so their friends thought nothing of it. They're like, yeah, sure, no, we'll lie for you, whatever. So for like 80% of the book, we're thinking this.
We're thinking that he actually lied, that he was gone.
Which again makes him look kind of bad.
Yeah, she even looked through social media posts of that night and was like, he's not there.
Yeah.
And then eventually her friend's sister confesses and is like, no, we were kind of like blackmailed. Something happened with her, and so they blackmailed all of the friends to lie and say Sal left. But there was one picture, and it said like 10:30 or something, and then
it said 12:09.
Oh yeah, 12:09.
Which proves, because you could see the blue shirt and some reflection because it was a flash picture of what he was wearing, so she could tell he was taking the picture. So I mean, he was there at 12:09, which means he actually didn't lie. He did have an alibi because the murder happened, I think, around like 12:40 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And so there was like no way that he could have done all. They like even went through it. There's no way he could have done all that in time. And also, it's believable that someone would have told them you need to lie to the police and tell them all this stuff, or we'll tell you about this really bad thing that they did, which they ended up like drink driving and running over a man. Is that true in the show too? And so they don't want to go to jail, and so that was their blackmail for this person saying that. It's believable because Pip has also been getting like kind of ominous notes and texts
that have been getting like progressively worse and worse of somebody saying, hey, stop. They're knowing intimate details of what she's found out, like somebody's following her. At one point I don't know if this happens in the book, but they kidnap her dog.
They did. That has happened in the book,
and then they unalived her dog.
They did. And so that is the Pretty Little Liars aspect of it, where there's this like a character.
It
like,
starts
kind
to
of
go
texting.
away from just the murder.
Right.
Like as she unravels more secrets, people are like, you need to keep this shut because they have their own secrets.
Yes, and the person threatening her and texting her is like going into her room and like leaving a message on her computer like, you need to stop looking. So like she feels violated. She's like, oh my gosh, like this person has been in my stuff. Of course, now they killed my dog. It's like, what else are they capable of?
And she starts to think it has to be someone I know, because how else did I not notice them? Like, because they took the dog in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And there's also, I mean, there is drugs involved. They don't show a ton of stuff, but they do say that she was dealing different types of drugs. Rohypnol is a very big one in the story. So we do want to say that is a very sensitive subject matter that goes on.
Yes. And the guy tries to play it off like, you know, roofies are sometimes just to relax us. It's not always to like, you know, assault people. But
It's the more the show, or in this case the book as well, continues, the more... No, I don't want to say off topic because everything connects, but the more in-depth and side stories we get to where it gets...
convoluted.
A little confusing. Even at points she has on her wall where she's got like string and like arrows pointing everywhere because there's so many suspects at this point.
There's so many. I mean, we have like 4 possible older guys that Andy could have being shady with. We have this girl Natalie who
used to be besties with her.
Yeah, used to be friends with Andy, but she was very pretty like Andy, and Andy was a little threatened, so she kind of sent and leaked a nude picture or video or something of her around the school, and that goes back to why she called her English teacher, or it wasn't her English teacher, but it was Pip's English teacher and Pip's best friend's dad, an asshole, is because he called Andy's parents and was like, hey, your daughter's being a bully, and if she does this again, I'm gonna have to suspend her, which would ruin her future. And her dad, who's straight-laced,
right, was not happy about that. He in a way becomes a suspect.
Yeah, because he left the dinner party at like just around the time where he got...
Yeah, he was at a function, and she's starting to realize like, oh, he was really controlling, and did he know about his daughter selling drugs? Right. But really, for a while, she's focused on finding secret older guy.
Yes.
Because at one point, their journey, because Ravi starts to work with her, like, they become partners.
Yes, and Ravi is coming to life. Like, he was very shy at the beginning of the book, but the more time he spends on this case with Pip, he gets more and more playful and fun. Like, you could tell, like, this is, like, energizing him, and you can also tell they're kind of having a flirtation thing going on.
In the show, I could see where it was going, but in the show, it was still feeling to me like it could stay completely platonic.
In the book, I think it's more so, like, you can definitely tell it's going somewhere, which, again, made me a little uncomfy, because in my mind, I'm like, he's 20.
He stays, in the show, he stays kind of quiet still, and just, like, being a little cutesy, but I was like, this could still be a completely platonic relationship. There was nothing, like, overtly romantic happening.
Yeah.
Until like towards the end, but
so it kind of came out of nowhere.
It did. Yeah, I was like, okay, I can see they're gonna try to put them together, but I was also like, okay, but their characters don't need this right now. Like they got a lot going on.
I'm not gonna lie. When we had, I mean, it's not like he was asking her on dates or anything. They weren't like doing anything obviously romantic.
It's very subtle.
But they were definitely flirting a lot, and they were definitely having like little moments where, you know, their hands would brush or something like that.
I Sherlock to my Watson.
Yeah, and like, oh, his eyes.
His eyes.
But I was also like, do we have time for this? Because I was like, first of all, this is a lengthy book. This is almost 400 pages.
I was like, she's got a lot going on.
She's got a lot going on.
I don't think she needs this.
She still hasn't written her damn personal essay for Columbia or Cambridge, wherever.
I don't think she needs this.
Like, anyway. But it wasn't that much a part of the book. But Ravi is getting more and more in this. He becomes like her partner in crime.
Yes. And so at one point she's like, hop in the car, we're going on a field trip. And they end up at this hotel on like outside of town.
Right.
And she thinks that Andy used to go there with secret older guy.
Because in the... I'm going to call him the druggie guy because he's the one who's like...
The drug dealer, yeah.
He's not the drug dealer, the friend of Sal's. He's just always
he was driving
high,
the car.
And he kind of like... She thinks he might be spiking people's drinks at parties.
Yes, in this show, he's like hot, blonde, surfer looking.
That's exactly how I pictured him.
Okay, yeah. He's the one that was driving the car that... in the hit and run that their friends got blackmailed
because he was drunk even though he said he wasn't.
See guys, there's so many webs.
But he had a picture of Andy in like her underwear.
Yes.
And Pip found that.
Pip found it.
And in that picture is like this red tile floor, I think. I don't know if
in the show it was like a white and black or like a white and green, but it is like a very specific, very vintage tile floor. And so while they're at the hotel, she tries to steal one of the guest books to see if Andy had ever signed in there. And so they hide in a hotel room. She's in the bathroom, and she just so happens to look down. And it turns out it's the same tile in the bathroom as in the picture.
That's how it happened a little differently in the book, where...
Okay.
Because they stole Andy's planner, or they like took pictures of it, and they found that she had written IV in a lot of time, like a lot of days, and they didn't know what IV meant. So they looked up all the possible things that IV could mean, and the hotel was called IV Waterstone or something.
If you're having secret meetings with secret older guys, I'm just gonna tell you, maybe don't put it in your planner.
I mean, it was IVY, and she was just putting IV, so I think she thought she was being secretive, but...
Maybe just remember that. Maybe just remember
or, like,
that you're
use a little star, or a little swirly, or a little smiley, little winky face, you know, like...
Maybe just... maybe keep that off the book.
So, they find it when they're looking at reviews of the place and stuff and pictures, that's when they see the floor, so, like, we have to go. So that's how it happens in the book.
They stumble upon it, they realize that it's her because in the guest book, it says, what are the names of Gatsby and his lover? What, Daisy?
Daisy.
It has their names written over and over, and it's in Andy Bell's handwriting.
Okay, that did not happen in the book. In the book, they asked the person who was working there, it was this very elderly woman, and she's like, hey, do you have any record of this person staying here? Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, that was 5 years ago. We don't have records that far back. And she was like, well, do you recognize her coming in? And she's like, oh, yeah, she's been in here a lot. She goes, oh, so you do recognize a woman like this coming in 5 years ago? And the old lady's like, no, like, she was here, like, a couple weeks ago.
That they had that, but it was a grumpy, like, 30, 40-year-old guy at the desk that was like, ooh, teenagers, go away.
No, see, that was the old lady's son. That was the old lady's son who came in and was like, sorry, my grandma has Alzheimer's. And the person who kept the books, like, died. So that's why we were thinking, oh, she's just confused.
Oh, yeah, no, he says, like, oh, yeah, I saw her last week. And now that I think about it, they never really went back to who he saw.
No offense, TV show writers, that's not good. That's not
He
good.
was like, I saw them last week, and now that I think about it,
no.
I don't, maybe they did, but I don't recall them going back to, wait, so who did he see then?
No, the book is way better because the book you start to have like you're like gagged because you're like, what do you mean you saw her 2 weeks ago? But then when the son says she has Alzheimer's, you're like, oh, maybe she's remembering wrong. Like, but you don't know. So you're like kind of going back in your head. You're like, is Andy still alive? And she did come here 2 weeks ago? Or is the like old woman literally confused?
No, I will say at this point, because he's like, oh, am I wrong? Like, yeah, I saw her. And at this point, that is when Pip starts to go, what if she's still alive? What if she went to run away?
See, in the book, they're still like, no, she's dead, so grandmother's confused.
Pip starts to be like, well, maybe she's still alive.
See, I started doing that, but Pip was like, no, our homegirl's dead. Like, baby's dead. So, old lady must be confused. But she did say, well, she recognizes her, so she has been here. So, they're like, she has been seeing some older guy and going to this hotel and having a situationship thing with him. And we need to figure out who this guy is, like, now.
Okay. I'm very interested to see in the book how she finds out who older guy is, because I will say in the show, I was gagged. I was like, ah!
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not trying to say I'm like the best like person ever when it comes to thrillers, but I will say that I read Sharp Objects and I totally called who the killer was. And then when they like said the killer was someone else, I was like, no, because it's this person. And then it was a red herring, and it ended up being the person I said it was. That's all I'm saying. And the person who it ended up kind of being, but not really being, was the person that I thought it was gonna be. And y'all will understand what I mean by kind of, but not really in a few.
I'm so sorry Gabby's confusing the out of you right now. We're gonna try. Bring it back, Gabby. Bring it back.
Listen, I'm just saying I'm so smart. I'm so
okay, tell them you're smart after. You know, we are confusing the 3 people watching this. So, do you want to say how we find out who older secret guy is?
Okay.
Do you want to say it, or do you want me to?
I want you to say it because I think I know, but this part did confuse me in the book, so I want to make sure that I got it right.
At one point, Pip and her friends need a ride, and her dad, her friend's dad comes, the English teacher, and says, like, get in the car, we'll give you a ride, whatever. And so she had saved in the book, the guest book of the hotel, there was a number written once, because they had checked in multiple times and it was always under them. But on one entry, there was a number. So she put it in her phone, she called it, and it said this is no longer in service. She saved it just in case and never thought about it again.
In the book, the number was written, you're going to hate it, the number was written in Andy's planner. Now,
how did the police not read a diary?
Okay, well, to Andy's credit, she did scribble the number out. However, our sleuth Pip over here can read through a scribble. Come on. She had like 10 number options for what, because she didn't really know what the last digit was. She couldn't really see, but she had like 10 number options. She called them all. Most of them were out of service.
No. She said she got the one number. It said it was out of service, so she just saved it. It's like, secret older guy, question mark? Didn't think about it. Towards the end of the show, like, the second to last episode is where it, like, got really, like, spicy. Mm-hmm. And so she is walking, and her phone starts buzzing. She's getting a call, and she looks at it, and it says secret older guy, and she's like, what? So she answers, she goes, hello? And on the other end of the line is her best friend's sister. And her best friend's sister is like, hey, I heard about, like, I think it was, like, about her dog. She's like, hey, I heard about your dog. Like, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to, like, let you know, like, I'm thinking about you. And Pip goes, whose phone are you on? And she says, oh, my phone broke.
That is what happened in the book, because I remember she said she smashed her phone, which was confusing to me, because this was coming not too long after the scene where Pip had to smash her computer so that they... Oh no.
Pip had to smash her computer? So in this show, nobody's sneaking into her house writing on her computer.
Okay.
Somebody's sending text messages, and at one point they're camping, and there's like a printed note in her sleeping bag.
There is the camping sleeping bag thing.
Nobody's on her computer.
Okay,
in the
so
show.
before her dog dies, they stole her dog, and they said, if you want your dog back, smash your computer, erase all of it. Like, she had to go to a park, and in front of whoever it was, so she couldn't find him, but she had to smash her stuff.
No, we didn't have that scene.
Okay.
It just said, like, stop this or, like, you're gonna lose him. And at first she thought it was Robbie, kind of cute, calls him, he's fine. Then she thinks it's her brother because it's her brother's birthday.
Oh,
and so she's like, where is he? They find him, and she's like, okay, whatever. And then her brother's like, oh, I wish the dog could have a piece of cake. And then that's when she's like,
oh. No, they said smash it or we'll kill your dog. And then she smashes it and they still killed her dog. Not that that's funny, I'm sorry, dog lovers.
No, that's not funny. That's just
it's
intense.
just kind of like harsh, you know? Like, I love a real villain, I think, you know? Like,
no.
give us a real one.
Her best friend's sister smashed her phone because when she was telling Pip about the blackmail and the hit and run, the hot white druggy guy came in and was like, what are you doing? This was a pact. We weren't supposed to say anything. Takes her phone and smashes it against the wall.
Hot white druggy guy.
So am I wrong? Did I stutter? I mean, okay. Make it make sense, people. So she's calling Pip saying like, oh, well, like my phone got smashed, so it's not working. So I found this random phone in my dad's drawer
and used the SIM
office.
card.
So I used his SIM card, and that's the phone I'm on now. And she's about to get in the car with the dad. And
that did happen in the book, and that was madness. Because here's the thing about Pip. She thought for a very long time that hot white druggy guy was the killer. Mm-hmm. And the way she confronted him was not the way you would confront a killer. Okay?
No, honestly.
She was like yelling at him all the time.
Anytime they got a lead, anytime she thought that, oh, this guy might be the killer, she just goes up and starts yelling at them. Yes. Natalie, she's like, what do you do? And Natalie's like, you think I would kill my best friend over a nude?
Yeah. She's literally like,
Pip
I know I was kicked out of college for getting in a fight, but like, I got bigger fish to fry.
Pip is not the best investigator.
She doesn't understand danger, but she is afraid of this teacher. Yes. So I don't know what changed. Maybe because the dog died now, so now she knows this person means business. She literally is like, he's trying to make conversation with her like normal, and she's just kind of trying her best to act normal, but she's freaking out.
Oh, see, in the show, she's pissed. She still doesn't have any fear. She's pissed.
I guess they probably changed that, because reading the book, I was kind of like, oh, so now we're scared.
No, they get in the car and he's talking and she's just like looking at him in the rearview mirror like this. Oh, really? That's funny for you to say. And then she leaves. So she's like, he says, oh, I gotta go do tutoring. And the daughter's like, oh, you're always doing tutoring. And we're like, okay, yeah, tutoring, sure. And so Pip leaves her phone in his car in the back seat so she can track him.
Right.
To see where he goes.
And he goes to a location that is very close to their old house that they used to live, right?
Oh, see, it is their old house.
Oh, I think in the book it's like 2 houses down.
Oh.
But maybe I read that wrong because again this part was confusing me. And because they said something like, "Oh no, my dad maybe they used it for his mom or something while she was working on a painting." I don't know. It's very confusing to me.
In the show, her best friend's mom passed away a few years ago, like shortly before the Andy Bell thing. And so they used to live at that house when she was younger, and they moved after she had died. And in the show, he kept the house. Like, it's in disarray. It's, like, cups and things everywhere. And he just goes there. So Pip, in the show, is DMs Ravi and says, call the police. I'm heading over there. And I think that is where Andy Bell is. I think the teacher is holding her captive.
No, I think it's a little more badass in the book.
Okay.
Because she's at the house and she calls 911 and she's like, listen, I'm about to go in this house. In this house is a murderer, okay? And I need you to send police right now. He is imprisoning Andy, who went missing 5 years ago. He killed Sal, and I'm going in. So you need to send them right now. And the person on the other line is like, please don't go in there. She's like, I'm going in right now. Send them now.
So in the book, she's calling 911 before she goes in the house to confront him. So then how does she find out that he killed Sal?
That's what she's assuming. Because she doesn't believe that.
Put it together like that?
Yeah, she's just like, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but in her mind she's like, this teacher framed Sal to look like he killed himself, so that the attention would get off of him. Mm-hmm. Because also Ravi was like, I also don't think my brother would have killed himself.
Yeah. She texts or DMs Ravi on her computer, says, I'm going to this house. She gets there. And I don't know about you, but in the show, the teacher's like, what are you doing here? Like, how'd you get here? Oh, why don't you come in, have, like, some tea or something, and I'll just explain everything. And he's just kind of denying everything.
No, in the book, which it makes more sense that he would deny stuff,
yeah.
But in the book, he is very much, like, he's way too quick to just admit everything. Because all she does is she looks this man in the face and she says, the cops are on their way. And then he literally just goes, it's over.
No, in the show they have a little more suspense. This is right at the end of the second to last episode. So you're thinking, okay, all of this is coming to an end, but we still have one episode left. Like, what is this? So she's sitting with him, and he starts to say how, yes, he admits to having a relationship with Andy Bell. He admits to that, and he says, like, I did see her the night she went missing, and I thought that everything would come back to me, kind of thing. And so I told her, she asked for money. He just kept saying, like, we ended things when she got with Sal, and that was fine. But then she came to me, like, long after we stopped seeing each other, and she was asking for, like, $5,000, and I told her no. And but Pip is kind of, like, pushing back, so he does kind of go a little further, and he is like, we did get into an argument, and so she fell and hit her head. But then she left. And that was the last I saw of her.
Okay, in the book, he's like, yes, she started texting me and she was giving me a lot of attention and letting me talk about, I think his wife had died, right? Mm-hmm. So, letting me talk about that, and it felt really nice to have this attention from this pretty young girl, and she wanted to go to a hotel, and I was like, well, we should absolutely not do that. Mm. But then one day he just got lonely enough, I guess, and he was like, okay, let's go. So they
never believe if a man said, that's not right. Mm-mm.
So they have a sexual relationship, but he said they only did it twice, like 2 days, right? And then it was done. And they did have the argument, and she does hit her head and leaves. Yeah. So that's the same thing. But the motive, there was no money. I didn't hear anything about her asking him for I don't remember anything about her asking him for money.
The whole thing was like, it seemed like they were trying to say, like, Andy wanted to get away and needed to leave, like, that night.
Okay.
And so she was like, and I guess one reason why before this happened, Pip thought the dad might have done it by leaving his function early and everything and might have killed her, was because he found out about the drugs, he found the money, he found Annie was going to run away.
In the book.
And just leave him and her younger sister behind.
Interesting. I kind of like that better. In the book, he made it seem like she just wanted him to, like, get her into Yale. Which, again, another American
She had no plans. She had no plans of going to America. Andy wanted to leave. And so that's when Pip starts to kind of be like, there's no way Sal would have done this because they were going to run away together. But
okay.
She lost all the money she had saved up dealing the drugs, which is the only reason she needed it was for the money, was so she could leave her controlling father.
That's so interesting. I don't know if I missed something in the book because that does make so much more sense. But I don't remember her anything about she wanted to leave her controlling father. I remember the dad / English teacher used to be a professor at Yale, but went to do the teaching thing at the high school to be closer to his dying wife. And then he got Sal into Yale. And so Andy was like, I also want to be in Yale with Sal, so you need to get me into Yale, so I'm going to start this sexual relationship with you so you get me what I want. And he was saying, and again, now maybe he's not true, like maybe he's not saying the right thing, but he was saying she was very manipulative and she always wanted to get what she wanted. She was very persuasive.
Oh.
So, but I don't remember anything about, but that makes more sense because why
Kinda
would she need all that money from drug dealing?
Yeah, kind of like the way the show did it better, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Because he was still kind of like, admitting, yes, we had a relationship, yes, we were like kind of in love, yes, she helped me through a lot, whatever, I know it was wrong or whatever, but when she started seeing Sal, we ended it and it was okay. And then
it's totally okay, not, no worries that I'm a grown man and you're a 17-year-old student, it's all fine. I stopped when you got in a relationship, so it's totally ethical.
With someone your age, I
respect the boundaries, come on.
Yeah, that one was a little, I was still like, and so he says like this moving speech and everything. He's like, she's not here, she's gone, whatever, I haven't seen her. Sal was so mad, kind of made it seem like you were right, it was Sal kind of thing. And so she sits and she goes, oh my God, so Sal really did do it. Really did kill her. And he's like, yeah, and she goes, nobody's here. And he's like, let me give you a ride home, come on, like, he's kind of like, let me give you a ride home. He's being weird, so I'm like, what's about to happen? Because they're making it, the vibes in the show are making it seem like he's the killer, and she's about to get hurt because she's like totally believing him, totally like, yeah, can you give me a ride home? She's crying, all emotional, and then she hears like a pipe hiss in the show, and she like looks up in the ceiling. She's like, what's going on? And he's like, let me get you home. She's like, why does it sound like somebody else is here?
I don't know if maybe the author was trying to wrap things up, like maybe the editor was like, you don't have a lot of space left, like wrap it up, or what. But again, he's just like, well, it's over, so, and he tells her everything. Everything.
No,
he even says, because she goes, Andy's still alive, isn't she? And he's like, yeah, she's upstairs. Like, he just says everything. Yeah.
So she runs upstairs, and she sees an attic, and it's locked. And she pulls it down, and she goes upstairs, and there's this blonde girl. She goes, oh my God, Andy, we have to go. I'm here to save you. My name's Pip, whatever. And the girl turns around, and it's not Andy.
That did happen in the book, where, well, it's not like she turns around. It's like she's definitely staring at Pip the whole time, and Pip is like, oh, she looks a little heavier, she looks a little different here, but it does look a lot like Pip. So she believes it's Pip at first, and then the more she looks at her, she's like, this isn't Andy.
So the teacher dad locks her in there as well, because she, like I said, she's too busy running up the attic stairs to think like, oh, maybe I shouldn't run up to somewhere where I can't get out. So he closes the door and locks them both in there. And she's like, thinks she found Andy, so like, yeah, she might die, but at least she solved the crime or whatever. And the girl turns around and it's not her, and she's like, what? And this is where I thought this was unnecessary, or not weirded me out, but I was like, I mean, great plot twist, but also what? So it turns out that this girl looked a lot like Andy. And so after Andy went missing, I guess the dad/teacher, who said it was all good that their relationship ended, saw this random girl on the side of the road who needed help. Like, I guess she was at a bus stop trying to find somewhere, and so he let her crash at the old house they were in. So she's retelling Pip the story of who she is, what happened to her. And she was like, I got that he's nice, so I went back downstairs after I woke up, and I was like, thank you, I'm gonna go now, kind of thing. And he was like having a drink or something, and then he was like, am I a bad person? And then that's when she's saying that he admitted to killing Sal.
No, baby. In the book, In the book, he tells Pip everything. He's like, I killed Sal. This is exactly how I killed Sal. Andy's upstairs. Okay. He's like, police are on the way. It's over. Like, he tells her everything. And then the police come before she goes upstairs, which is so weird that the police, again, would let her go upstairs. The fact that these grown people would watch this teenager go up the stairs and be like, yeah, this is fine.
Also,
madness.
Like, it ruins the crime scene.
Yes, madness. And so she doesn't get trapped up there because he's not stupid and he's in handcuffs.
No.
She doesn't get trapped up there.
She runs up there. He does later tell her everything, though. So it ends where the girl tells the whole story and being like, oh, well, I was scared, but I just told him, like, oh, well, I'm sure you're a good person because you were really nice to me. Can I have one of those drinks you're drinking? And he goes up to get a drink, and that's when she tries to run to the door, and he, like, captures her, and, like, that's the end of the flashback. So,
this doesn't happen in the book. None of this happens in the book.
Okay, yeah. See, that's how she finds everything out, is by the girl.
None of this, because the girl in the book, they say that she's, has, like, she's, like, 20-something, but she has, like, the mind of a 12-year-old, and she actually believes that she might be Andy herself, because that's all he's called her. And she is, like, into drugs and stuff. And then he never explains anything. They're just kind of assuming that he saw someone who looked close enough to Andy, and because it was driving him insane that Andy might still be alive somewhere and it might come back to him, he just told himself, kind of deluded himself, that this is Andy, so he could, like, move on with his life.
I will say the details could have been better in the show. Like, it was just suddenly, like, wait, there's this random girl, and the flashback was, like, he just saw her at a bus stop, and she was like, I need a place to crash, and it looked a lot like her. And the girl was kind of like, maybe she wasn't on drugs, but maybe she was like, she looked like slightly homeless, or she looked more like she was lost. Like, really, they just made her hair messy. Like, that was kind of it. And so, and then when she turns around, she goes, I'm not Andy. And I was like, okay, I feel like that needs to be its own story, because, like, I'm losing details here.
Yeah, it was kind of, like, really, it felt really rushed at the end.
And so the police come and get them and everything, and the dad is arrested, and then it ends with her walking out, and, like, her dad comes and rushes over and says, it's all over, it's everything, and that's the end of the second to last episode.
Okay.
And the start of the last episode, she is able to wiggle her way inside the police area, and she's able to get, like, 5 minutes alone with the teacher again. And she's like, why did you kill Sal? Like, why? And that's when he admits. He's like,
okay.
He says, like, oh, it would have come back to me if she had gone missing. And I mean it when I say all she did was hit her head. And she left. I'm telling you, I did not murder her. I was telling the truth there. But, I mean, Sal, like, I needed a reason out and everything. It was still, like, kind of a stupid reason or whatever, but they said, like,
because now you actually did kill someone.
Yeah, and he was like, and, like, suddenly he went from being, like, not a suspect, very well-kept guy, to being, like, this seriously mentally messed up guy.
That's what kind of got me with the book, where they were like, maybe he just, like, deluded himself into thinking he's Andy. I'm like, he seemed pretty normal before this. Like, why now he's, like, a madman?
Yeah,
like,
he literally was, like, oh, crying, and he was like, oh, like, yeah, so I drugged him, and I took him, and I was, like, smothering him or whatever, and then I was talking to him about college and going to school, and because I wanted him to feel safe, and I was like,
they did say that in the book, that he wanted his last thoughts to be positive.
Positive, yeah.
Although he didn't smother him, he just gave him a bunch of sleeping pills.
Oh, I think he like covered his mouth up too. Okay. He gave him a bunch of pills and then was like,
yeah,
it's okay, I'm here, whatever.
So weird. Like, even if Andy came back,
all they would have been able
they would have been like, oh, you hit your head and you slept with your teacher. I mean, it would have been bad for you. It would have been bad for you. But this is worse. Now you're a kidnapper and a murderer.
Yeah, and Pip even says, like, that is not that anything would have been a good excuse, but Pip is like, that's stupid.
It's stupid.
She was like, how you took his life because, like, you were scared you might have found out that you got in a relationship with her. Like, it's not like you actually killed her.
Which I guess, like, the thesis of this book, if you think about it, is, like, secrets do actually, like, they're really bad.
And they pile up on, like, yes. Everybody's secrets somehow connected.
Yes, like, Andy had a lot of secrets.
Her friends.
And her friends had a lot of secrets, and everyone's secrets kind of made things work. So, like, if Sal's friends never kept that secret about the hit and run,
he would have never been.
He probably would have been alive, because they would have had an alibi. They never even would have looked at him.
And that's when because the only reason that the dad looked to Sal was because he read his daughter's diary and read about the hit and run.
Exactly.
And so he was the one that was blackmailing his own daughter,
right,
saying like, say Sal left before he actually did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, that is like super premeditated, which is why I was like, this whole dad section needs to be like its own movie, because that's its own mystery.
It's
and
so weird. Yeah.
It's getting away from the plot a bit. So at that point, I don't know about in the book, but at that point, Ravi thinks everything is solved. He's sad, but he's gotten over it. He knows his brother's killer. He knows who killed Andy. And Pip is like, he didn't do it. Andy's still out there. I need your help. And and Ravi's like, I need to move on. I haven't left this town. It's time for me to leave. I need to go.
I cleared my brother's name. We did what we came here for. Like, let's get out.
We're done being partners. And she's like, but that's not it. So she's like, fine, I'll go do this on my own. Pip is looking at her board. She's wanting to take it down, but she finds out there are some loose ends. So she's still wondering. There's a list of different drugs, and there was one drug and one person's initials who she couldn't quite figure out what it was. And she knew that a lot of things that went on had to do with the roofies. And so she is able to put it together that the initials go with hot blonde white guy.
Hot white druggy guy.
Druggy guy. Yeah, so for like the 8th time, she rushes in and approaches him and is like getting in his face, and he's like, oh my god.
She hates him so much.
And honestly, like, if he was gonna like, the thing with this, she keeps going back to these suspects.
Yeah.
And they like spill their guts. But then you're like, then there's still more? Like, spill it all at once then.
Exactly. Because he's just like, why is this kid here again?
Again. So she's like, you roofied someone and you assaulted them. And it turns out that was Andy's younger sister.
Yes.
Who does resemble Andy quite a bit.
Yes. Only not as magical, the book says.
Yes. She is a little more, like, plainer. She's like the consolation, sister of sorts. And so he just is like, no, it was consensual. And she's like...
Yeah, because she didn't say no. And I don't know how she does it in the show, but in the book, she's like, you gargoyle viper arborist or something. She's like, because she was drugged.
Yes, she did go off, which I will say, while they cover a lot of these sensitive topics... I think they did it pretty in an okay way. They didn't divulge in it too much. They didn't show anything, at least in the show. Nothing was overly graphic. They do discuss these topics, though I feel by 16, 17, kids kind of know what this kind of, like, murder and assault and drugs, they know what these things are. I do think in the show they were able to keep it a part of the plot, but still kind of, like, it move along it pretty easily. I don't know about in the book if it went into detail or...
It's not very graphic. Okay, I wouldn't say it's very graphic. I mean, it was like a lot... There's a lot of drug use. They do talk about sexual assault quite a bit. Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on, but it is, like Diane said, it's a very, like, we're going to mention it very plainly and we're going to move on, but it's not like we don't get weird details that are unnecessary or anything.
It doesn't get graphic, doesn't give weird details. It just says, like, this happened. So she goes to Andy Bell's house, which is where her sister is, and... Her sister's like, come in, like, sure, I'll talk about it. And it's like, yeah, but, like, what you wanted me to tell you that the last time we talked? Like, I'm not going to talk about it. Like, and she said all she wanted ever was to be Andy's, like, best friend or to hang out with her. So that's why she went to this, like, deep underground party. And that's, like, how she got roofied, was because she was just trying to go and be like her sister.
That's true in the book, too.
So then in the book... What happens in that moment, like when she's at the house?
So she's like being pretty hospitable. She's like, oh, I'm making some tea for myself. Do you want some? And Pip is like, no at first, but since she's already like has the kettle on, she's like, yeah, okay, fine. Like, I'll take black tea. So they're drinking tea and they're talking about it. And then Pip, in good old Pip fashion, gets confrontational out of nowhere, 0 to 100, and starts being like, you were assaulted at this party by hot druggy guy. And you came home and you didn't know what to do and you killed your sister, didn't you? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm reading this like, wait, where's the thread? Because how does a roofied girl, because in a previous interview, she had said that she got like the morning after pill because she had slept with someone, but she wouldn't tell her friend who, and her friend assumed it's because she was embarrassed. But now Pip is like, it's because you didn't know who, right? It's like you didn't know who it was because you couldn't remember anything. And so, and then you killed your sister. So I'm having trouble following like the through line of this, but I guess Pip knew what she was doing because the sister just admits it and is like, yeah, well, I told Andy about it, and Andy didn't want to, because Andy was selling the drugs at this party.
Yeah, Andy sold the drugs that she got. That
ended up making her, and what happened to her. And so she was, like, really upset, and Andy was like, well, I don't care that you're upset. Like, sorry, not sorry that this happened to you, because you can't go to the police, because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So then they start arguing. And then in their argument, kind of similar to what happened with the teacher, it was an accidental, in the heat of the moment argument. She, like, pushes Andy down or something, and Andy hits her head in the same place, I guess, where the other head injury happened. And the sister says she didn't know that Andy had a head injury prior. But now, because she hit her head twice, Andy's, like, throwing up, and she's just, like, actually, like, really messed up. And then I think she dies. I'm thinking Andy dies. And so then, you know, she's like, I don't know, what am I going to do? And then I think she just ends up, like, driving Andy to the place where she got the drugs or something. I don't really remember past that.
So in the show, it's kind of similar. They start to talk, and she says her sister went and took her to get the morning after pill and then said nothing about it. And later on, like you said, she finds out that she was selling drugs to the guy that roofied her. And so she kind of felt like, in a way, it was Andy's fault, or like Andy wasn't backing up her sister or protecting her sister. Because then when she approached her, like you said, Andy was like, well, you can't tell the police, you can't report this, because then I'll get in trouble for selling drugs. And so she pushed her up against the wall, and she does start to, like, fall down and choke and everything. And she does end up dying. And so, in the show, she says it all kind of very plainly, in a way, except she was just like, oh, that's just kind of like, that's what happened. Like, she's just listening out. And so, Pip kind of, in the show, she takes an endearing approach. She's just like, well, you didn't know, like, she had already hit her head in the back. Like, she was already coming back from this. It wasn't your fault. You didn't know, whatever. And so the sister's like, yeah, thank you. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for that. I was like, kind of like as if she always felt guilty for what happened. Yeah. And so she goes, well, do you want to know where she is?
That's not what happened in the book. So that stops. No? So in the book, she's doing this endearing thing. And she's like, I need you to leave now. Like, the police are on their way. Again, Pip always be calling the police and having this, hey, they're on their way. So you gotta act fast. She's like, the police are on their way, but I'm giving you an opportunity. You need to go, like, leave the country or something, because it wasn't your fault, and so you should just leave now.
Really?
Yes. But as she's saying this, like, you need to leave now or whatever, things start to look weird. She starts to see, like, fireworks, and things are getting kind of, she's like, can't really talk anymore. She's getting kind of slurred in her speech, and she's like, what is going on? And she realizes that she's been drugged. She looks at Andy's sister and is like, did you just drug me? And Andy's sister is like, I'm sorry, I had to do this. And Andy's sister just, like, watches her as she's, like, dying from this whatever drug that she put in the tea. And then the last thing that Pip hears is, like, someone rushing in, and it's, like, her dad. And her dad, like, holds Andy's sister back. I think her name is Becca. And he, like, holds her back or something. And there's, like, a lot of screaming. And then Ravi is like, okay, it's okay, Pip, it's okay, we're here. And then even in the book, is that kind of fun, actually, because in the book, because she's so drugged, they have the words go down. I'll show you and I'll show them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'll take a picture. Maybe Diane will, like, put it on the screen if you can't see it here. But the words, like, go down.
Down, yeah.
As if she's kind of, like
that's her thought.
Falling out of consciousness.
The basis of that happens in the show, but completely different setting.
Okay, so they go to where the body is? Andy's body?
Yeah, so she's like, it wasn't your fault, whatever. But, like, I where is Andy? And the sister's like, do you want me to take you to her? Do you want me to, I'll take you to her. And so she's like, okay. And then so this is when it starts to get sus, because the sister goes, well, drink up and we'll go. And so she like downs her tea.
Of course.
They go into the caves, which is where the underground party, the calamity party is what they called it, used to be hosted sometimes and stuff. So they're down in these caves and everything. Nobody knows where she is. Robbie's gone. They had a falling out kind of thing. So she's on her own. She's with the sister, and they're going in there, and they get to this like well of sorts, and she pushes it back, and she's like, that's where she ended up. That's where I put her. It's kind of like starting to click for Pip, where she's like, but it wasn't your fault. Like, why? And the sister starts to kind of show her true colors, because as Pip is clicking into gears, like, why is she here? And like, what happened and everything. That's when she starts to get kind of fuzzy. And so, and she starts to be like, what's going on? And that is when, in the show, the sister is like, she started to throw up, like describing it more. She was bleeding a lot in the head. She started to throw up, and I didn't do anything. She was going to leave me. She kind of to show like, it might have been an accident that she shoved her, but
it was a happy accident that I was like glad was happening.
She was like, I didn't stop it.
Yeah.
I didn't help her.
Yeah.
I let her throw up and choke, as opposed to like, oh God, oh no, it was an accident. What did I do? Which is what Pip was telling her. Similar to the book, where she was like, hey, I understand it wasn't your fault. Like, here's your chance to redeem yourself, kind of thing. And so Pip starts to try to run away, because she's like, don't you realize, like, she was going to leave me with our dad and everything, and she thought she was so good, and yada yada.
This was such a creepy scene.
It was kind of like oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And so Pip is like starting to lose consciousness. She's running through these caves, no idea where she's going. Cuts to a scene where Ravi is on the bus leaving town, and suddenly he has this feeling like, oh, I'm gonna go back. And he goes back, and he runs into the best friend, Pip's best friend, and is like,
the one whose dad just went to jail?
The one whose dad killed his brother. Yeah. So they see each other like, hey, this is kind of awkward, because, you know, like, oops, sorry my dad killed your brother, kind of thing. And she's like, hey, have you seen Pip? She's like, no. He's like, well, I'm trying to get in touch with her, but I can't. She's like, oh, well, here, I follow her phone. It's not the dad. It is the best friend and Ravi that get into the caves to find her. Meanwhile, the sister, is pulling her by the legs back to the well. It's like, nobody can know. You need to go where my sister is. She's down there.
Love it.
Go find her, kind of thing. Starts to get like a lot more like murdery, like very classic. You know, kind of like, okay, here we go.
Oh my
and of
God.
course they find her in time. They're calling the police. They're like, they're outside. They're coming. Here she is. And she gets super arrested and
super
Pip,
arrested.
and Pip is saved.
That's so much more fun. No offense again to this writer. It's a great book. But that's more fun. I forget where she said she put the body in this, but it wasn't, I don't think, unless they have a different word for well in the UK, I can't think of the word.
I will say it was still kind of, I don't think they, not that I can remember anyway, I don't think they tied up why she would put her sister in a car and drive her and dump her in a well when it clearly looked like an accident. You know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, she could just been like, my sister and I got into an altercation, fell.
That's why I think sometimes
or like,
people are going 0 to 100 too fast.
They
it's
do.
Like, slow down.
And that's kind of like a teen magic. We'll go with that.
So, the book and the TV show were pretty similar, but there were some, like, key differences to the point where if you read the book, you would probably still have a good time with the show.
Yes. Well, there is one last scene in how the book ends. So does the book for you end in the house?
Oh, no. There's, like, a 2 months later scene. Mm-hmm. But it's just, like, she's like, standing up on this podium for some reason. And, you know, the news has gotten a hold of the story, and they all think she's the hero. And she gives this, like, speech about how she's not a prodigy like everyone says. You know, she's humble. And she's like, I couldn't have done this without Ravi. And then Ravi gets up and says some words. And, they share, like, a kiss before she goes on the stage. So, you know, they're together now. Which, again, okay. And it was basically like that. But she cracks me up because she starts the speech with, when I decided to do my capstone project on the disappearance of Andy, I had no idea that this would put my family and my friends and myself in danger. I was like,
Really?
you're gonna reopen up a missing persons / possible murder case, and you don't think that you're putting yourself or your family in danger? Okay.
You're not worried about any of the emotional ramifications of you interviewing people and assuming that they're murderers right off the bat?
Yeah.
Just for
especially
questioning them?
because you went in thinking that Sal wasn't the killer, so you went in thinking the killer was in the neighborhood, and you didn't think anyone was going to be in danger?
See, so it ends a little different in the show.
Okay.
She goes to this little lake where her and Ravi would hang out every now and then. They have their little kiss moment. He's like all googly-eyed, whatever, and I'm like, okay. That's when I was like, I knew this is what it was going to lead to, but it didn't feel necessary. They could have completely just stayed platonic friends.
Yeah.
And it would have been A-okay.
They also could
It almost felt forced.
They also could have just been in the same grade. I don't know why he had to be 3 years older and...
So in the show, it made it feel like he was only like a year older.
Okay.
Like, as in the show, she was still in school, and he had stayed behind instead of going to college for a year so he could, like, be with his parents or something. But that also, doesn't track as well.
I guess it could have maybe, because it said it was 20 in the book. So I guess if you're 18 when you graduate, she was 17 in this book, and she was 17. But I guess if by the end maybe you're 18, and then maybe you take a year off, you could be like...
That's what I felt, although he did say, like, oh, I can't leave because I can't leave my parents in this.
Yeah. I mean, he was definitely grown.
But he looked like he was 17 with them, though. So
That's good.
It was hard to be like, wait, how old are you then?
It was just, like, also a lot because a lot of the plots, like, dealt with, Andy and this older guy. And she never once said, I'm kind of maybe into an older guy. I might be seeing an older guy.
Well, Andy's older guy was, like... 45.
Yeah, but the hot white druggy dude, she also called him an older guy, and he was only probably 2 or 3 years older than Andy.
Yeah, that's true. He was, if that. It ends after she and Ravi have like their little moment. Like you said, a couple months go by, and she's walking past this memorial for Andy, which is what kind of started this whole thing.
Okay.
She was looking at the memorial of Andy where it was like her face and flowers, people leave. And so she goes back as a kind of like I solved it, like came full circle. In comes hot white druggy dude.
Why?
One last time. And he's kind of just like, you did it, kid. And she's like, no help from you. Like, you're not a nice dude. And this guy kind of seemed like he was coming on to her in a way, like in certain times of the show.
Wait, did he not go to jail? Because in my book, he like got charged for sexual assault and for drugging people at parties.
I think they just kind of were like, you know what? One murderer is fine with us. We can't lock up the whole town for all their secrets. I don't know, but he's roaming free.
Okay.
But he was kind of like pissed. He's like, like everyone found out everything, or I don't know. And then she goes and she tells him like, I'm not gonna stop. He's like, what? It's done. Put everything to rest. And she goes, no, I'm not going to stop until everybody knows your secret, until everybody knows every single secret that you have. And then something kind of like that was probably better in the show. But and then she like,
secret, will you keep it?
So then she turns around and walks away, and he's like, hey, I'm still talking to you, kind of thing. And she just kind of smirks. And it's not a cliffhanger, but it kind of leaves it open to be like, oh, she's just getting started.
I do like that better because in this one, it just ends with, like, they're still on the podium and everyone's, like, thinks that they're, like, gods because they saw the case. And she just, like, they have, like, a cute little moment together, like, and then she just looks at the crowd and she goes, any questions? And that's
that's a kind of cool way to end. But
it's a cool way to end. But I think it doesn't leave room for, like, another thing.
No.
I really thought they were going to keep Andy. She might be alive-ish, so the next book would be, like, what the heck happened to Andy?
There are 2 more books.
Yeah, I don't know what they're about. I didn't read a synopsis or anything.
Yes, and I think a novella too, but there's definitely 2 more books. It's a trilogy, and I do think the next book is a completely different thing. Okay. I think it does follow Pip, and it's still in the same town, but I think it's completely different investigation or different things she's got going on. This girl just like finds trouble, looks for trouble.
Yeah, it should be the bad girl's guide to murder. Honestly, But she didn't seem like a good girl to me. She seemed kind of, what's it called? Defiant.
Yes, she was very, like, a little, not super edgy, like, she wasn't an outcast, she had her own group of friends and whatever, but she was very defiant. Like,
Yeah.
at one point, she tells her mom that she's going over, I think she says that she's going over to Ravi's after they say, like, put it to bed, stop with the case.
Yeah.
And her mom's like, no, we talked about it, you're not doing the case anymore. She goes, actually, I am, and walks away, and the mom is just like, okay.
Yeah, her parents were a little too chill for my liking. They were kind of, and I get that, like, having chill parents helps you to have a really, a protagonist that, like, gets into trouble.
But I think it also means you have no fear. You're just like, I have no consequences.
She just, because she knew her parents were going to do anything, and, I don't know. It was, and then also, she was joking in my book. She was joking about, I guess you're going to have to disqualify me because I did talk to Ravi or whatever before she brought him up. But everyone was just kind of laughing and stuff. And I was like, wait, is she going to be disqualified? Because I'm pretty sure she's not going to graduate if she's disqualified. Even though, like, Columbia, she already had her Columbia interview.
See, they don't have that. She does have a Cambridge interview, but it was like a mock interview during the show.
Okay.
And the mock interview lady just asks, like, what she's writing her capstone on. And she lies and says, like, oh, it's about, like, modern feminism or something like that in the Gothic age, or I don't even know.
Okay.
But they don't get into whole she failed or passed or anything.
Okay.
I think they're like, oh, she caught a murderer, we're gonna let it slide. I do have one thing about the show, that the TV show at least, that I don't want to say irked me, but that I didn't quite understand.
Okay.
And that is that the main girl who was cast, her name is Emma Myers. She does a phenomenal job. I don't know if you've seen Wednesday.
Yes.
She's that perky roommate in Wednesday.
Yes, I loved her in
She's
Wednesday.
phenomenal. She was a great actress
Yes.
and whatever. But it did throw me off guard because I was like you. I thought it was... when I saw she was starring in it, I thought it was an American teenage show.
Yeah.
And it takes place in England. She's an American actress, and her accent, it does slip a bit. And you can see that she's trying very hard to keep that.
Yeah.
So she does a good job. I'm going to give it to her. Like, it was a good show. But everyone else, you could tell, is English.
Yeah.
I haven't Googled it. If not, then they did a much better job, in my opinion.
Watch them all be American.
Phenomenal. But my thing is, like, well, if everyone else is English... Why isn't your main... You can't find a main character that's... I do understand in some cases where you're just completely blown away, or you have a certain actor in mind, and I think they were kind of eyeing her for the part after she did Wednesday.
Yeah.
But to me, the character, there's nothing quite specific about her that you couldn't find someone else to cast.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I guess she does kind of have the look and energy of someone like Pip, who is very, like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, very, like, I got this. No, I got kind of frantic. She has, like, a bit of... I can see her having a frantic energy and doing that well. And she has kind of, like, a... First of all, her face... She looks like a Pip.
Yeah.
She looks like a Pip.
And that's what I remember. I hadn't heard of the show or anything, but for some reason it did end up on my timeline when it was announced that Netflix was making it into a show. And when they said the cast, a lot of people were really encouraging, being like, they cast perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes, we want Emma Myers. This is phenomenal. To me, it just kind of, it slipped a bit in cases, and I was just kind of like, it looked like she was trying really hard to keep the accent, and sometimes she would, like, whisper things, or, like, it just took me out of it a little bit, but maybe that's just me, where I just kind of analyze the acting a bit more, because...
She's just getting ready for Columbia. Not in the show, right?
Cambridge. Getting ready for something that starts with a C, some school. I don't know. Other than that, I will say that it is most definitely for 16 and up. It is... Oh,
I thought you were, like, gonna say a little younger, because you were seeming like they were glossing over a lot of stuff. There wasn't a lot of gore. There wasn't a lot of...
I would say know your kid. I would not say it's a fresh PG-13 kind of movie. I would say it's more like a TV 14 or up. I would say more know your kid, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't go younger than, maybe 15.
Okay. Is there a lot of language?
No, not a lot. I just think some of the things are a bit heavy.
It is heavy.
And they do add one thing on top of the other. Like, it'd be one thing if it's just drugs. It'd be another thing if it was just, like, abuse. But then it's also murder. And it makes sense because you're not going to be surprised by any of this. You might be surprised by the plot. But the content I mean, it's a crime thriller. So,
It
of
is,
course,
yeah.
there's going to be a lot of heavy and dark topics.
Yes.
It doesn't sit heavy. Like, I stopped watching it and I was like, I feel good. I'm not sitting heavy. I'll admit,
Right.
I couldn't finish 13 Reasons Why. And I read the book, but the show
God.
was too dark for me. I couldn't
Yeah.
finish the show.
Well, the show was very graphic. And you're
Yes.
saying the show's not graphic.
The show, I did not find it to be super graphic. They showed the back of her head being hit, so they did show the blood coming down, but it's like her hair is matted. And they did show her getting like pushed up against the wall and going down, but then she was just kind of like on the floor.
Yeah.
They did not show the sexual assault. They showed the girl in like she tripped in the forest and was like lying there, and she sees a shadow over her, and then that's it. Like lights out.
No, okay, it definitely isn't her kid. There wasn't anything that stood out to me. There was 2 F words, I think I counted. There was some other, like, language that, like, I think is pretty normal for a teen language. Again, stuff they probably hear in high school. There was a lot of talk about drugs, like, a lot of talk about drugs. Shadiness. I guess, like, there's just a lot of shadiness going on, right? So, like, our main characters, like Pip and her friends, they're not shady kids. They're very, like, I think the most shady thing they did was, like, one guy wanted to bring a Ouija board out at the camp. Like, they were like,
Oh, yeah, that was kinda
fuck the
funny.
spirits. But for the most part, they're really normal kids. So the people we're following, but then the people we're talking about were some shady kids.
Very.
So they're really getting into a lot of seedy stuff, a lot of, like, I would say even gritty, like, it seemed kind of like a lot for this small town. Like, again, like the drugs.
How
and
none of these secrets came out before.
Yeah, the dirty hotel and having a sexual relationship with your teacher and just like
Blackmail.
Yeah, like all this. I mean,
Dirty
the good
cops,
news is
like,
they
it's-
don't make the relationship with the teacher look okay. Unlike Pretty Little Liars, where they're like, that's totally fine. So weird. But it's just like a lot where you're like, oh, like these kids are maybe not all right. And they're always drinking and they're always drunk. Our main character doesn't really like getting drunk, so there's like representation on all sides of it.
Yeah.
But like there is like a lot of talk about just having shady teenage lives. But that's the only thing I can think of.
I do like what you said, how it's the people we're following aren't like that.
Right.
It's the kind of older teens
Yes.
or early 20s or like the other people, because and to compare to like Heartbreak High, it was all these teenagers were super messed up and seedy, and we said it in our episode, if you want to look back and watch that is not your normal high school life.
Right.
So I do really like that these high schoolers were very much normal.
They were very normal.
They
So
were
it's not like
very-
your kid's gonna think everyone in high school are like these other
and
teenagers.
and I think that would help for your teen watching it to kind of like be able to separate it from real life, because Heartbreak High, I could see where you could kind of watch it and be like, why is my life not like that?
Right.
Or like, oh wow, they're living these wild high school lives.
Yeah.
But here it's kind of like, oh no, this is
Right.
like fantasy, this is different, this is these people, and there's these normal high schoolers, which is what the age audience is.
Yes.
I hear that maybe they might come back for a second season in the show.
Oh, well, if they do you think it's going to be based on the second book?
I sure hope so, although I will say I think this would have made a better movie than a series, because it's a trilogy book. And I think at times in the show they were kind of starved for more plot or more details, or kind of, I felt like some episodes there wasn't much going
Like
on,
stretched
other
out.
parts. It was just the flow. It could have been a bit better. Maybe if they do a second season, it'll be...
Yeah. The book, I thought the pacing was really excellent. I think it was paced well for a thriller. Like, we were constantly getting new things figured out, but also having more questions. And I think it did a really good job pacing-wise in the book. But I could see how in a show it could be... Because I felt that way about Sharp Objects, too, where I was watching the show Sharp Objects after I read the book. And the show also felt a little drawn out to me, where I was like, this probably could have been in like a...
It's kind of hard when you're doing a crime thriller and you know
Yeah.
that it's, especially a book adaptation, because
Right.
it's hard to pace when you have to stop an episode. Like, you
Yeah.
can build a cliffhanger off an episode really well.
Right.
But I find for YA, it's kind of
Yeah.
harder. Some of these limited series that you know is going to wrap up, you can make them into like super like built up tension.
Yeah.
Here, I feel like if it was a movie, I would have been seated a little more strapped in.
And hey, man, streaming, you can make a 2.5 hour movie if you want to.
You could, it would,
Yeah, if you want. They've done it before, so I mean, I don't think it would need 2.5 hours, but we've already been filming this for an hour and a half, and we're just talking about it, so maybe...
Thank you guys if you've held on. Thank you. If you want to watch the show, it's 6 episodes, about 50 to 55 minutes each episode.
Is it on Netflix?
It is on Netflix. The book is how many pages?
It's I think like 380 something.
It's a very average sized book. Yeah. I would say it's a decent
I would
size.
say it's a little longer. Well, it's a little longer for I read like contemporary YA, so I'm not used to all of this like stuff going on. So I think it's a little longer for like a thriller and for a YA. Mm-hmm. But it's not. I don't think the pacing ever dragged for me. So I guess I get why it was this long. Like,
yeah.
To be honest, I think it probably should have been a little longer toward the end because I think she was trying to wrap it up really quickly. But I don't really know, like normally when I read a YA book, I'm like, oh, they could have cut this scene, they could have cut that scene. I don't actually really know what scene they could have cut from this. I think they were all necessary.
Yeah, same. I just think it would have been better as a movie. And with a British actor.
Oh.
But I think you did a great job. I can't hate. You've heard my accents. I can't.
It's,
I think
someone just commented on, they thought it was funny that you're trying to pronounce something with a Canadian accent.
Oh, yeah, no, I give up on all accents.
If your kid has already read the book and your kid has already read the book, they can watch the show.
Yeah,
It's the same.
It's the same. It's very similar. There's nothing too overly graphic.
Yeah.
Everything they've read is probably what they'll see.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna...
Right.
No.
That's fine.
Now, if your kid has not, or your kid is a bit more sensitive to these things, or you're a little more hesitant when it comes to, like, I don't know, murder mysteries that involve teens, maybe have your kid read the book first, and if they like it, because they're imagining things more in their head than seeing it, and that's usually a little less graphic, a little less jarring. Or you can read the book and then decide.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's a Netflix original, I think, so it'll be up there for a while. And but yeah, I thought it was good. It was a good time. And gosh, I can't wait till the next Watch Like a Teen. I don't even know what it's gonna be.
I can't wait to edit the next Watch Like a Teen because wow. Did we cover a lot, and yet it feels like we left so much out.
We're very sorry if this was a convoluted episode, but maybe...
There was just so many spoilers.
I mean, so many spoilers. Things. We had to tell you all about it. And honestly, we did leave a lot out.
And yes, and if there's anything else, I would love to do adaptations more. I loved doing this. I mean, it was kind of hard because as we're talking, we're like, wait, what happened in the book? What happened in the show? Wait, this didn't happen for you? Okay, how do we go about talking about this? But
we'll figure out how to structure it, and we might do this again.
Yes, and tell us if your kid was reading a book that's going to be adapted, and you're like, should they watch it or what's it about? Or even if tweens, those are usually a little harder when they get adapted because they could go a little too cheesy or a little too more, adult and graphic.
I love a good middle grade book, y'all.
Yes.
I would eat that up.
Tell us your thoughts. Hey, I'm down to take a break from watching TV if somebody really wants us to cover just a book.
Yeah, if there's like a book, honestly, there's a lot of teen books, or there are books that are being presented as teen books, or they're being sold in the teen section. They're actually probably more like what they call new adults, so like 19 to 22-year-olds.
Pretty Little Liars.
So if you feel like that your kid picked up a book and you're starting to wonder, is this like smut?
Summer I Turned Pretty. So many other ones. Cough. Sorry.
We'll read the book for you and we'll let you know, because there are some books like that, and I know it can be hard to keep up with everything your kids are watching, reading, listening to. We'll review an album. You want us to cover an album?
Oh my god, yeah.
We got you.
I will say there are some books that are a little more towards YA that I read and I was like, okay, these are perfectly fine, and then when they're adapted, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, sometimes it can get...
They
get spicy for some reason. I
ran
don't
away
know
with it.
Why.
But that's something we can cover if you ask for it, because this episode has been too long. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions about a murder going on in your small UK hometown, go to the police.
Don't call us, because we are not solving it. No.
That's not a unicorn. That's just a pony with pink hair.